So his Medal of Honor is the first, that's what's crazy about this, the first class of the Medal of Honor Legion. So it's actually a different distinction than the Medal of Honor, because this was the first. It was like they had a group of people that were like, this is what we're going to establish the Medal of Honor for. They call it the Medal of Honor Legion First Class. So it's like above, it's actually more impressive because it's like the first Medal of Honor given.
Howard Owens here with the Batavia, and I'm with David Bellavia at the Holland Land Office Museum, and we just, I feel like we witnessed a little bit of history here. We got to see for the first time your Medal of Honor with the one received by Charles Rand, the first two recipients from, with connections to Batavia to receive the Medal of Honor.
Here, hold it up so I can see the difference here. But it's the exact. Yeah, it's almost, the eagle's a little bit bigger, but they have not moved the design much at all. I wonder how much of that green, do you think someone painted that?
Honestly, I don't think so.
When I first looked at it, I thought it was like a corrosion, but...
I think they definitely changed the material a little bit. And there's just weathering involved in that too, but... because I don't know how it was stored before it reached us. And then again, it's been with us for a very long time, so...
Right. I want to know how to get the first volunteer award. Beautiful.
Just wanted to get your thoughts, to be here at this moment. I mean, to me, it's pretty inspiring.
I'm not sure I can compare anything to Charles Rand. I mean, this is the first Medal of Honor that was given in the class. Lincoln is the reason why we have the Medal of Honor. The Civil War version of it is really what the modern version of the Medal of Honor is. To be the first class, and also, you talk about the amount of time it takes from action to receive it. This guy went through a tremendous amount of red tape. Earns it in 1861, receives it in 1897, but doesn't really get it until 1904. And then the other thing that is really impressive is what he did with his life when he came home. He wasn't just a soldier. He went and became a medical doctor, practiced in Genesee County, became part of the community, was a pillar in the community. So that's a pretty impressive. And also when you look at the difference in the awards, even though time has decayed the ribbon and everything else, the actual award is pretty similar. They haven't, the tradition of the award, maintained through 1861 is pretty cool.
Yesterday at the Key to the Study ceremony, I watched you let several people hold the medal. Either they asked you, or in some cases you offered. And one of the thoughts I had at the time was, what if he asked me? I read your book. I went through all those ceremonies in Washington. I met the men who you went to war with and had some very deep, meaningful conversations with some of those men. Sergeant Menno, Michael Ware, Colin Fitz, Sergeant Bandy. And when I think about, if you ask me, I'm like, I don't feel worthy. It's such awe-inspiring award that I'm just kind of in awe just in seeing it.
I can honestly tell you I've never physically been near the Medal of Honor and then you don't want to touch it because you think of all these stories that you went through the Army hearing about. But it also comes back to just the selflessness of those men in Washington that I served with. I mean, we all love each other. We all care about each other. We risked our lives for each other. But the way that they just completely embraced this moment as a shared moment, it really shows you a lot about their character and who they are as men and women. I just can't say enough about those guys. Those, you don't pick your family. You don't get a choice. You don't pick your unit that you're with. You just grow where you're planted. And I found myself with just some of the most amazing men I've ever met in my life, and they're still great men, and they're doing things at home now and with their families and their jobs, and they're just, the one part of it, you're so nervous, you're on, all this light is on you, and you don't want to screw up, and I screwed up anyway. But you don't want to.
That might be some B-roll at this point.
Right, yeah, the facing movement and everything else. I'm so glad no one brought that up. But that everyone noticed it happened, but no one brought it up. I appreciate that. It was ridiculous, but at the same time, you're super nervous. You don't want to screw up anything of the ceremony, But the one thing that I wish I had more time to just be with them, outside of the ceremonies that. I didn't even know there was a Hall of Heroes. I didn't know about the Pentagon ceremony at all. It just kind of happened, during the week. But I wish I had more time just to kind of sit around and just talk. And, it's not just about the old days, but just about, you don't ever think you're part of something. When you're in a combat situation, you have no electricity. Internet is, 2004, it wasn't all that great anyway, but you just didn't get a lot of outside. What does the country think of the war? What is our fight national news? I didn't even know that Michael Ware could have filed that story. I mean, into the technology of the day, I don't even know how he did that. I mean, it was a satellite phone. There were 2 days I thought he was still with us, that he was missing. I didn't even know he went back to file the story. So I never in a million years thought that it would get attention, and to think that my unit was a part of something that was getting attention. It really is just, you look back at it now and you think, we're just normal guys from Batavia and Western New York,
What I wanted to talk to you about today is what you experienced in Washington. We're discussing, I was there and witnessed a lot, but didn't see everything that you went through. We didn't get a chance to talk in Washington about what the experience was like for you. So I wanted to start off with, we were talking earlier about your arrival at the hotel in Washington. I was doing some video when you came in, and when I went back and looked at the video, you kind of look up and shake your head and like, I can't believe it. And just, what's going through your head?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you probably had a better perspective because, you're so insulated. The bubble, you got to see far more from the outside than I did, because it was just so inside of the motorcade was just so overwhelming. I've never had a motorcade in my life. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was that, Washington, there's so many tourists in Washington that the outside, it's more entertaining to look at people just visiting a memorial and they see this enormous motorcade and they just stop and start filming the motorcade. They don't even know what's in it, what the deal is. But it was just a crazy experience. The kids were loving it. My mom was going nuts. She was just, enjoying it. And then as soon as you get into the hotel, it's like, you step into a time portal. And you're seeing guys that you really haven't seen for 15 years, and there's a drill and ceremony to this whole process. Generals and dignitaries and VIPs are supposed to greet you and go through a protocol, but you miss your friends and you haven't seen them forever. So it was like this constant battle between wanting to be with guys that you really care about, but also going through the protocol of this ceremony that's bigger than all of us.
After you arrived, you get whisked up to your hotel, and you used the word bubble, and that was my sense from that time on, is you're kind of in a bubble. We're downstairs drinking, having a good time. You're not part of it.
Right.
The military seems to be keeping you away. Maybe that was your choice, but I
feel
like the military's keeping you away. Where would you have rather have been?
Oh my God. Well, for hearing the stories about what's happening at that bar, I don't know. But on the surface, no. I just wanted to be with my friends. The reason why you invite people you care about to an event like this is to enjoy it with them, and the Army is gone out of their way. There were guys who received this award that had no support at all. Saul Junta, who I've gotten to know, since this whole thing has happened, he's just an honorable and decent man. And he was the first living recipient in the Global War on Terror, got it in Afghanistan. If you look at the layer of Army support that Junta got compared to what I received, this is an institute. I mean, they've got, 20 folks that are just all around the recipient to just make sure that, there is no craziness. Saul was out there on his own. I mean, Junta was just, they just said, all right, we don't really know. We haven't done this in forever. And they learned a lot of lessons by, you take a young guy and you throw him in New York City and the media gets a hold of him and, who's limiting the amount of questions, who's controlling the interview. None of that was really a part of, and so the Army over time has said, look, we're going to do this the right way, and we don't want you to get in any trouble, right? So you're not gonna get arrested, you're not gonna get in any issue, and the best way to do that is just to keep you like an O.J. Simpson juror in a sequestered hotel room, and that's that's what they did. But the interest is in protecting the Army, and one of the things I learned really quick is that this is no longer about me and my interests. This is about the institution, the Army, and those who came before us, and I'm appreciative of the Army for doing that.
So at what point did you first get a chance to spend some time with your men, and just describe that experience? I
think when you're younger, you're ashamed to tell another grown man because there's so much, I don't know what it is about being young in the military, but you just don't express yourself the way you can after you have children, after you've lived life. I never had a chance to tell guys that I loved them. I never had a chance to really hug a guy and tell him how I felt about him. And in 15 years, we don't care about that anymore. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And, in the conversations I've had since seeing these guys in Washington, every conversation ends with, I love you, thank you. I'm just blessed to have them in my life. And, we don't pick our units, we don't pick who we serve with, but I was lucky. I was so lucky to have so many great guys, and being able to look them in the eyes and tell them, and also to have them on that stage. I mean, that of all the things I'll remember, I won't remember anything about that week outside of what you documented, and did it brilliantly, by the way, and I appreciate that. But outside of the video and the images, the only real memory I'll have is just having those guys on that stage. That was one of the most special moments of my life. It was really neat to see.
I know for many of these men, I heard it, that this is the first time they've been seeing each other since Iraq. What are your thoughts on the fact that the Medal of Honor, I mean, even though you can be there for all the carousing,
right?
Yeah, but what are your thoughts that the Medal of Honor ceremony brought these men together when they haven't, so that they could share in this experience with you after all this time?
I mean, I would have preferred someone else receiving it. I would have liked to, but my whole thing is that, the Army has a way of, the military in general, with the wars and the kinetic tempo, life just takes you in a million directions. I'm sure there's people that you went to school with or worked with in California, and now you move, and you're just never going to see them again. It's just not conducive to your life that you're going to hang out with someone that you spent every lunch hour with. And then we were a forward deployed unit. We were in Germany. So, guys meet spouses that live in Germany, and that's their family. That's their life now. So it's like, it's a lot if they have any extra money in their household budget, they're going to go see their family for Christmas. They're not going to go hang out with you in Buffalo. So you're accustomed to never seeing them again. But the other side of that is that when you lose someone in combat, you have this false sense of it's not real because you're just not accustomed to seeing people again. So it's almost like when you lose a guy, they just PCS. They went to another station. They met someone and they work a job that doesn't allow them to talk to you anymore. And the other reality that I don't think I was emotionally prepared for was seeing a Gold Star family and realizing this actually happened. This is real. It's not a nightmare. It's real. and that family is still dealing with it every single day. And so it's like love and excitement to see people you care about, and then this 100 miles an hour into a brick wall of the cost of war and the real family connection to what these people are going through. You see a 15-year-old kid who has no memory of his dad outside of a photo, and you're telling this young man stories of his father, Sean Sims, and you know what he meant to us, the type of man he was, how much he talked about his little boy and how much he loved him, and Mrs. Falkenberg and J.C. Madison's dad. You know, everyone has a little story, and that's a story they've never heard before. You know, when the casualty notification team tells you that someone has died in your family, you don't get that unit there with you to tell you, we all, you know, wrote a letter and this is the story of what your son meant to us. You don't ever receive that. So this was an opportunity for those gold stars to have not closure, but just some sort of, you know, we still love and we still admire and we still miss your loved one and honor your sacrifice.
What would he say about this award?
I think he would be proud of him, proud of the way he represented the unit, proud of what he did on behalf, you know, of his men, of his squad, and of his platoon. And he stepped into the fatal funnel, returned fire, and allowed them to exfil. And it's very similar to what Sean Sims did. I mean, he just unfortunately, you know, Sean didn't make it, so that's a hard one. But he'd be proud of him. I know that. And he was proud of that unit. Sean was a great leader. He was a great company commander. He was a great officer, and he was my best friend. So,
in your book, you talk about how Captain Sims, after this action in Fallujah, came up to you and said he was really stupid.
Yeah.
Question I want to ask. There's a question I was going to ask you about that. When I mentioned it to Mick Ware at the bar one night, he said, because I was going to ask at the Pentagon press conference, he said, "Don't ask that question. That will not go over well." But in the one-on-ones with Minnow and Colonel Walter, I did ask a question about Sims. Not the one I was going to ask you, but still mentioned Sims. Very emotional answers from them, very moving answers. David's book, all you guys love Captain Sims. What would he say about David getting this award?
Captain Sims was a very calm-headed gentleman. He's very, very well collected, very well thought out. At times I felt that I was probably a little bit more aggressive in certain things that I wanted to do or what have you. But he had a great way of calming the situation, making you refocus and making you, take a step back and relook what you need to do and make sure you're doing the right thing. I definitely think that if he were here today, he would be honored. I know that he's a very humble leader, so I know for a fact he'd try to, tell the story of everybody else and not tell the story about himself.
Let's talk about Captain Sims for a minute. And the question I was going to ask is, he said that was a stupid thing for you to do, and I wanted to get your thoughts on what he would say today that you received this award.
The guys that were with Captain Sims the day that Captain Sims died are some of my dearest friends. One of the things that we weren't able to do in the book was because it was just so emotionally taxing for the reader to go into more. It was a publishing editorial decision to cut out a lot of that action. What happened in that house with Captain Sims was nothing short of heroic. It was absolutely some of the most incredible stories of valor. Travis Barretto, my interpreter Sammy, Joey Seaford, First Platoon, John Bandy and First Platoon and Sergeant Ritchie and Echeverria fighting to get to Sean Sims. Really incredible stuff. I mean, that's a story that needs to be told. I will tell you that had our fight not happened in that house, we would have cleared that building, without a doubt. Sean Sims made the decision that because we had such a crazy night, because we had gone through so much, that you guys just take a smoke break, crack open an MRE, eat one, and relax.
And it really kills me inside because I just talked to him right before he walked off to go to that house. He stopped by to see my platoon, made a couple jokes, talked about stuff. Sergeant Bell made a really funny joke with him about some stuff I shouldn't say on camera. Some pretty funny stuff though. And then right when he was getting ready to walk out, said, "Hey sir, where are you going?" He says, "Oh, I'm gonna go link up with 1st Platoon over here. That are another house. We're gonna go check it out." And I looked at him and I said, "Hey sir, stand by and let me send a squad or a team with you." And he looked at me and he looked at the guys and he goes, "Hey man, you guys been through a lot. And I want you guys to go in and take a breather real quick, and then we'll continue to move on." And I looked at him, and I said, "Sir, just let me send some guys with you." And he stopped me. He goes, "Hey, man, you guys need a break." He goes, "I got my guys," and he pointed to his personal security detachment. He said, "I have my guys. Have you guys take a break. Don't worry about me." And I looked at him again, and I said, "Sir, are you sure?" And he says, "Yes, I'm sure. Relax, you guys are doing good." I walked off into the house. No more than 5 minutes later, my platoon sergeant Control comes running into the house. And this is one guy that I've never seen him ever look scared. I've never seen fear in his eyes. And the look on his face immediately was just... It was just something that I don't ever want to see that look again. He called me outside and he said, "Sir, Cam Sims is dead." He said, "We need to move back to the to one of the phase lines. We need to move back up there and reconsolidate, and we're gonna figure this out on the way down." And it's bad enough that we already have to go through all of this. It's bad enough that we're in a bad situation. But I'll tell you that me being the platoon leader, I get the news directly from the company commander. I get the news directly from the higher chain of command. And to have to turn to my guys and say, "Hey guys, the company commander's dead. We need to move on." That's the worst thing that anybody could ever have to do.
But we had just lost Lieutenant Iwan, and we'd lost Falkenberg, we'd lost Madison, and his response was, "We can't be foolish anymore. We can't take chances anymore. It's let's just get through the toughest sections, and now is not the time to just take ridiculous risks." And his commentary was basically like, we got this. We're just going to literally clear it. There was a CNN crew with him, and the confusion was, they wanted to do an interview in one of the abandoned buildings, and his primary security detachment was just going through just to make sure that there was nothing in there. And I don't know what would have happened. At that point, it's pointless to say, The reality of a house fight is you could have SEAL Team 6, or you could have 5,000, guys from whatever unit you choose. If someone gets a jump on you, they get a jump on you. These are bullets. They're not, we're not Avengers here. I mean, you shoot at a door, someone's going to get hit. But the chaos of that house fight was that, it was more than a soldier. It was your commander. And your commander is a very important role. He's not just your leader. He's your mascot. He's your soul. He's your empathy. He's the guy that comforts everyone, the guy that motivates everyone. If Captain Sims had a plan, I was good because I knew someone had a plan. And as long as right plan, wrong plan, it's our plan. It's his plan. That's my commander. That's my relationship. Now, Doug Walter, our company commander, was with us all the way until the day we left for Iraq. And the guy who took over our company, Sean Sims, that was Doug Walter's best friend. So when we were planning missions in Iraq with Sean Sims as our company commander, Captain Walter was there with his friend, supporting his friend. It was never about he never undermined Sean Sims. It was never like, hey, what did he No, it was, we had a commander and we had an assistant commander and we had an XO, and together we were getting everyone's brain in on what our plans were. To bring Doug Walter back into the fight after losing Sean Sims was a huge emotional boost because our morale was about, Falkenberg was a father figure to us. Iwan was one of the most decent and wonderful men I had met. Madison was a scout, but he was still beloved. I mean, he was a Buffalo guy. I mean, we hung out. He was a good man, you know. But Sims gutted us, absolutely gutted us. I mean, that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to lose leadership. We're supposed to get the guys going through the doors, and he chose to be there. He didn't have to. He chose that, and he chose that because of the type of fight we had in that house. And had that not happened, he would have looked at us and said, "Go clear that house," which is what he should have done. But because we had gone through it and our faces showed it, the gouges, the scrapes, the fatigue, yeah, that's why that decision was made, and that's something that really hurts. Yeah.
It strikes me that you know, you lost a lot of great men, but that's the one that.
Well, because it's just the way it happened. The guys, you know, the guys that were with Sims that day just have so much, you know, they were all wounded too. It wasn't like, you know, they walked out or they broke contact. They were shot. Seaford, you know, we recovered Seaford's rifle a month after Fallujah. They killed an insurgent that had his rifle. Seaford was shot in the shoulder and couldn't even move his arms and was still flinging, you know, through his weapon as a last, you know, because he couldn't lift his arms. He was shot repeatedly. Those guys carried that guilt and that burden, and it breaks your heart because, you know, everyone internalizes things differently. It's their fault. They should have done more. They all did their best, and they're good men. I'd go to war with any one of those guys. But because they're carrying the guilt, and we have the guilt, everyone has guilt. You know, your company commander is not supposed to kick down a door and engage. That's usually the worst case scenario. You get attacked, and you know, General Grant is looking at a map, and someone comes through the tent, and he engages them because he has to. General Grant never, you know, got on a horse and said, "I'm taking this village." That's not the way it works. But Sims made that decision, and it showed a tremendous amount of love for us. But at the same time, you know, it hurt, and and seeing the family react to it is rough.
David, today we honor your extraordinary courage. We salute your selfless service, and we thank you for carrying on the legacy of American valor that has always made our blessed nation the strongest and mightiest anywhere in the world.
So you got to meet the president. We all see the president on TV, have our media perceptions of a person from media, but it's never the same as meeting him in person. So what's your measure of the man, having been in the same room with him?
He's an incredible personality. He makes you feel like you've been friends for a very long time, really knows how to connect with people. The way he treated the soldiers that I served with was really great. I mean, I'm sure just demographically, if you look at the world we live in, I'm sure not everyone voted for him in that room. And I'm not really sure if that changed anything. But in that moment, that was their commander-in-chief. That was a guy that showed concern. I was surprised at his physical build. You know, I'm so used to seeing these caricatures of the president being, you know, overweight, obese, sloppy. There's not a wrinkle on him. He just is a large guy. He's a guy that looks like he could, you know, he's a big man. He's solid. He's not, you know, he's intimidating. You know, he's a big guy, and he when he's serious, he's very serious, and when he's joking around and having a good time, he's just has a kindness and a sense of just, he's a guy on the block that you would have a beer with. I wasn't expecting any of that. I don't know if it just, what I'm realizing is that a lot of what we hear and see doesn't really match up to the reality of when you meet someone, you know.
And he's not orange.
And not at all. Not at all. There was no, I didn't see that at all. I didn't see his skin color as being, it's just, you know, but again, when you get your historical, reference points from satirical comedy shows, they tend to exaggerate.
As you're standing on stage, he's speaking, going through all that. Before you get the medal, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking?
I don't know, the drill and ceremony part. They don't really give you a whole lot. There's no standard, parade rest, position of attention. I wanted to show reverence for the, process, and I'm in a uniform. I want to, if I was talking to a 3-star, I'd be in the position of attention. It's the commander-in-chief. I'm going to be in the position of attention. So the only I'm so focused on, not locking my knees and passing out that I'm just following the teleprompter. That I'm not even listening to what's being said. A couple times he, I guess, made a reference to something, and I just, looked over and was like, politely nodding and smiling. I wasn't really listening because I just was trying to not screw up any of the facing movements, and inevitably I ended up screwing up a facing movement. But he uses the teleprompter as cliff notes. There's nothing. He doesn't stay on it. He throws in whatever he wants to throw in, and so it's really hard to kind of find out where we are in the ceremony, how long it's going to last. Those cameras are so loud. And knowing that all these, I've never had a paparazzi moment in my life, but that's about as close as it's going to get. And it just felt like, 10,000 rifles squeezing off at the same time, and it's overwhelming.
After the reception, my perception was it's a dizzying array of people coming at you, wanting to shake your hand, wanting pictures with you, selfies. Most of the time, I felt like you were just in this tunnel.
Yeah.
And like, how much is he absorbing of what's going on? And the other thing I kept thinking is he's probably not even aware I'm here. But I was surprised when I went back and looked at my photos how many times you turned and make sure that there was a picture of you looking at me, which just surprised me when I thought about, because my perception is there's just a ton of people coming at you. You've just been through this big ceremony. Were you able to take it all in?
Again, I came at this at a totally different angle. I didn't ever want it to be about one person's actions. I wanted it to. There were so many other layers that made this easy to be able to deflect a lot of that. The fact that it was the only living recipient from the war in Iraq makes it more of a generational thing. You can now talk about, whether you agreed or disagreed. You can't put that above what was done. Whether or not, if you're scorecarding valor, then, you got to acknowledge the valor, and it was everywhere. You couldn't just pick and choose one or two stories. There's tens of thousands of them. And then the other part of it too was that you've got your family, your friends, but also, I never wanted to lose focus of, for the longest time, Buffalo is always, you tell them you're from Buffalo, or you say you're from Batavia or rural Western New York. No one really has a sense of what that is. And I wanted to be surrounded by where I'm from. This is who I am. This is what we are. We're not apologetic about it. We're not going to be like, I'm so sorry you're from where you're from. This is my unit. This is my family. This is my hometown. No award is going to change that. No layer of fame or temporary celebrity is going to change where you're from. So why not use this opportunity to let people know where we're from and to bring people into the most powerful house in the world? I was super proud that, my family and my friends were there, but also what it represented, I think there's a reflexive effort sometimes to say, well, just choose the closest city you're from, claim the city, and then bring all your friends from Channel 2, 4, and 7 and let them eat the shrimp at the White House. But I'm not. I was born in Buffalo, but I wasn't raised there, and I'm certainly, proud of the city of Rochester and Buffalo, but, they're like a first cousin to me. my brothers, my sisters, my moms and dads, the people the village that are part of me, Lindenville, Batavia, those areas, that's where I'm from. That's who I am. I wanted them to enjoy this too, and I wanted them to get the credit for it. So that was one of the reasons why we invited the folks that we did, and made sure that, people acknowledge that as great as Western New York is, a large part of that is the rural areas too.
So we spoke about the picture that I captured of you, Naden, when he's looking at the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's the first time that he got to see it after you received it.
Right.
And the look of joy and impression on his face, the pride on your face. What did that moment mean to you?
My kids, so my youngest two were born after the war, and for the most part, I think we all go through this phase when we come home where you don't really want to lead with that. I think a lot of people are weirded out by, the book and the violence in it, and it's just not something you want to remind. So there's not a lot of, in my house when they were growing up, there isn't a lot of Army stuff around. There's really no evidence that I was in the military outside of a book, and they're certainly not at the age where that book would be appropriate for them to read. So they really learned a whole lot about what I did in the Army in Washington, D.C. And it was by design. It wasn't something that, I was ashamed of. It's just not appropriate for a 9 and an 11, 12-year-old to get a crash course in. One of the things that was really special, though, is that they got to hear the stories from my friends and got to understand why these men are so important to me, and ultimately why they have a father is because of these men and what they did for me and sacrificed for me. So that was special, but I don't even know if young people understand, the Medal of Honor is important to a lot of military people because we hold that in such reverence, but civilians don't really get it. And hearing about what a big deal this was, and then having him, be able to see it and realize, hey, that's my dad. That was really special. And at the same time, it automatically becomes, do I have to join the Army now? Do I have to continue the family business? And, they're going to make that decision on their own. I really hope they do. I'd be just honored if they did that. But at the same time, now I'm getting a lot of questions of, what do I have to go to West Point? Can I just join? What do I do? Do I have to? Am I going to get shot at? What do I do if I get shot at? So we're having those discussions, and those were discussions we never had, for their entire life. So.
Evan, is always pretty reserved, as I've known him over the past few years. I never had met Aiden before. Evan's clearly enjoying himself. I saw that at the Pentagon. I saw that yesterday. And Aiden, when I went up to him, I said, "You having fun?" He goes, "This is awesome."
Evan is, I love that. I'm so proud of that kid. He's a really good boy, man. And I missed a lot of his, years growing up with the Army and just being away. And it was a very difficult, I remember when I would come home on block leave, he would hide my car keys. He would hide my hat. If you don't have a hat, you can't go back to the Army. And he would always ask me, if the bad guys were done, if we beat the bad guys. Why can't you just beat the bad guys and come home, And, at 3 and 4 years old, he would give me his level of understanding of, this is dangerous, and I don't want you to be around danger. And a lot of the things that I did, I really thought of him all the time, and I'm so proud of the man he's becoming. But at the same time, I see how difficult it is to be a 19-year-old kid and try to have your own life and do your own things, with the fact that, why aren't you serving? Why aren't you going out there and doing whatever? So it's, I want him to find himself, and I want him to be the man that God wants him to be. but I just don't want him to feel that pressure of having to, try to, he is far more impressive than I was at that age, and what he does with his life is the equivalent of getting 4 Medal of Honors, because he's my boy and I love him, and I just don't want him to feel that pressure.